have done a study with it. We have realized that yes, having a number of transmission lines is important to control transmission losses. But even more significantly is the geographical distribution of our generating facilities. And so we need to have a mix of both. Thankfully, for some 3 or 4 years now, transmission losses, I'm talking about transmission, not others. Transmission losses have been well within the PRC threshold. But we want to continue to do better. So we need to really go ahead. I think Chairman made a good point in your introduction speech. As we say, GRIDCO is the back, and it's not just, it's like everything together. Development agenda as a nation, the transmission must go ahead of all the others. You can have a lot of some of our sister institutions in West Africa have a lot of generation that they can't run because the transmission is not there. And we don't want to get there. And so thankfully, we have done a lot of good work since the 1960s to have the transmission of the generation. We need to keep that. That's what I'll say.
Any questions, contribution before we move to the last question?
All the parts of this country to get the electricity that we want. Because with 5,500 installed capacity and the peak so far over the year at 4,000, there is a difference of about 1,500. So why then?
Mr. Chairman, so yes, installed capacity is 5,000. Probably I need to explain a bit. Capacity, one of the capacities we talk about. Because generation is prone to fault, at every point in time, some of them will be down due to fault. Their numbers will still add to what you call installed capacity. We now have about capacity. So available capacity is always less than installed capacity. Apart from generators that will be down due to fault, from time to time, just like our car, from time to go and do maintenance on it. So some generators have to go down for routine maintenance to ensure that they continue. That is why we, GRIDCO, have done a study, and that study has determined that at every point in time, we need to have generation by 18% to be able to cover for all the generator outages for maintenance and then the inevitable generator outages due to faults, because generators typically are maintaining parts. It's not only so we need to have a big fleet so that even if 1 or 2 go down, we still have enough to serve the demand behind.
Last one.
Thank you. So I'm asking in relation to the generation mix, hydro, thermal, and now solar. So where from your do you see the available capacity? In terms of where you have difficulty accessing the power, and what are the challenges so that you could also find it?
Right. So I can say that most of the time, the challenges are with the thermals. The thermals have more complicated, what we call balance of plant support system. They have pump. Hydro technology is usually a little simple, and the speeds at which hydro plants turn is much slower than the speeds that thermal plants rotate. And so most of the faults are with the thermals. I must say that solar also have their natural tendency. They are only available during the daytime. In the night, where in Ghana our peak occurs, in Ghana the highest demand occurs in the night. But that is the time that the solar also goes to sleep. And so that's the little dilemma there.
Yeah, so, Madam, in your presentation, yeah, you spoke about challenges, and I know a little, maybe it could be true or not, about compensation. I hear your compensation is quite high, and it's a challenge to you. Can you educate us a little? At least I want to know a little about compensation.
Thank you very much. Give a bit of history of how that. My deputy chief executive mentioned the fact that, for instance, we developed a rated cable line in 2009. It traveled from this water substation all the way to Akwasi. And you realize that places like Kaswa, Cape Coast, and going towards Takrade, you would come into settlements. And sometimes we look for the shortest possible route so that the line is not too long in selecting the line. So, madam, what happens is that in doing this, you would either go through somebody's farm or somebody's house. And sometimes there is no way to divert. So maybe you might see a house which is this big. But if you want to divert, you might hit, let's say, a hospital. So the lesser evil is to rather take out the house. So our compensations are usually buildings and then crops. And then some of the crops are things like cocoa and the cash crops, what brings money, palm, rubber, and all that. So all these feed into the compensation costs. So generally, compensation is about 8 to 10% of the project costs, yes. And the danger is that when you don't have the amount for the compensation, when it comes to land, the price of land today is different from the price of land tomorrow. So if we don't have the money to pay for the compensation today, and the project stalls, it means that one, you haven't finished the project at the time you want to finish. Two, the contractor will bring a claim and say because you couldn't finish his equipment, his offices, so pay him more. Three, the land that the landowner has refused to give to you as his bona fide right as a Ghanaian, tomorrow when you are going to pay for it, by the land law, you have to revalue the property. So
the perception that I think
yeah. So so all I'm trying to suggest is that as for our transmission lines, they use a lot of land, and we would always somehow impact buildings, and then also some crops.
do you really pay them?
Yes, ma'am, we pay. I'll give you an example. We were doing a line from Kumasi to Bolga, 555 kilometers, 330 kV line. At that time, this was 2012, Gridco had to pay its balance, get into its balance sheets, and government gave some. We finished the portion from Kintampo to Bolga because we all know that in that space there isn't much, the lands are sparse, it's the groundnuts, the guinea corn, and their costs are low. But between Kumasi and Kintampo, the project stalled for almost 15 months because we needed about $9 million to pay compensation. Because the buildings in Kumasi are huge. It's cocoa farms, it's palm, it's rubber, and we couldn't do the work until we got the money. And we paid every single project affected person, and they allowed us to do the work. The people, they know their rights. So when you don't pay, they can stop their work. Then you have to now do the conversations and the collaborations, but we always pay. But that's eventually. So eventually, yeah, we have to pay. Yes, and Chief, with your permission, probably I'll inform Mr. Chairman and members that sometimes even we have even legacies. Not that we refuse to pay. At the time of the project, you don't identify the person, so they are unidentified. But when they come, once they are recorded, would have to revalue and pay. And I know Director Lance, I don't know whether he is here. I'm sure he's dealing with such legacy compensation debts. And we also took over the legacy from VRA. So we've been managing all that. So please, Madam, we try.
Follow up to Madam Kingston's.
Please, we don't have time.
Or something small. Before I put in my soil, it becomes one. Like the road people do.
The roads.
The roads. They earmark that in future a particular road be constructed. So they provide for it.
Right of way.
Do you also have those things in
Yes.
mind, so that in future you earmark that this place, your lines will pass there, so people should not go there. So that one aside. Not my own question. The environment.
Okay, sir.
Chairman, if you come to the environment,
Yes, sir.
I want to know the relationship between DITCO and ECG.
Okay.
I have a very good community called Popobo, Uvoma, and those areas that have a lot of coconut trees. Once upon a time, they say we are going to enjoy electricity. Then they cut down almost all the trees.
Okay.
Meanwhile, you go to Togo, they construct AAC or AC, where the tree lines are bundled together and pool, and they are put there. But Ghana, you cut every tree. What's the relationship between you and this?
Okay,
So, Chief,
let me take that
the first one. Okay.
So, unlike the roads, I think in the beginning of my presentation, and our chairman also accepted, we don't own any commodity. We don't own electricity. So it is somebody's generation that we are taking and sending to somebody who is receiving from them. So we cannot predict where the generation is going to be in order to pre-align the sites. And so largely it's dependent on how the nation evolves and how investments in the economy flow out. And then we try to go ahead and put in the past.
Yes, sir. So I just wanted to say what my boss said. Roads have rights of reservations. So we've done a single carriage today. Maybe tomorrow Ghana will grow, so we can do double carriage. So we also have the road bed. So if it is a 330 left and then 20 to the right. So we try to police our rights of way so that people don't go into it. And it's the reason why we have to pay the compensation, as Madam said, because once we pay, you cannot come back. The least you can do is probably, if it's a farm, maybe you can do a crop that will not go up, because the power is interesting. The crop doesn't even have to touch the line. Once it breaches, it will sense that there is a threat and it will go off. So that is the we find ourselves in. Interesting thing is that the way power is, because you are chasing development, sometimes where you have to necessarily affect somebody. So we are within the devil in the deep blue sea. However, there is something I know. Able to volumes. I don't remember the number, but for instance, in there something says that if I affect your not up to a percentage, I can decide not to pay. Unfortunately, in that act, it is not explicitly written for us. So I know we are engaging, I think, the Ministry of Lands. Yes, to see how we can take advantage of that rule. For instance, if this was the land, and it means you can use all this. So then one, I will not pay. But if it passes like this, I've destroyed it, so I have
Don't
to
worry.
pay.
He was there when the part was passed.
You've been in talks with some of the stakeholders, ECD, Whitco, Netco, how far have you gone in terms of negotiation with them? I understand this is supposed to improve efficiency and management. In my own view, it would also cut out the blame game. When you talk to ECD and you ask them why they are not generating and supplying enough power, they say they are ready to sell, but the generation is the problem. So, how far have you gone with that? I think that if all the stakeholders are brought together, then you can probably